There are moments in life when the world you know collapses in the time it takes to read a sentence. Lauren had no reason to suspect anything unusual that Thursday afternoon. The sky was bruised with clouds, the wind rattled the bare tree branches, and the school parking lot hummed with the usual chaos of parents honking and kids darting around like pinballs. She tapped her fingers on the steering wheel, eyes darting between the front doors and the dashboard clock. 3:06 p.m. Caleb was late, again. When the school bell had rung minutes ago, she'd expected to see her 7-year-old son come out in his usual messy fashion, backpack half-zipped, shoes untied, cheeks red from running, but the doors remained, shut. The kids trickled out. No Caleb. Just as anxiety began to swell in her throat, she saw him. He walked slowly. Too slowly, shoulders hunched, eyes on the ground, like the air was heavy and he was dragging something behind him that no one else could see. Lauren rolled down the window and called his name, trying to sound cheerful. Caleb looked up. His face didn't brighten. He walked around the car like a ghost and climbed into the back seat without a word. No hug, no smile, just silence. She glanced at him through the rearview mirror. "Everything okay, baby?" He nodded without looking up. That single motion sent a chill through her. Her son never nodded. He talked. He rambled. He sang about dinosaurs and volcanoes and planets exploding. He made up wild stories about what he saw on the playground. He never nodded. The drive home was a crawl. Traffic choked the road, and the gray clouds above seemed to press lower and lower with every mile. Lauren gripped the wheel tighter. When they reached home, Caleb walked straight to his room. No TV, no snack, no mention of the new Lego set he'd been begging for. Something was wrong. She felt it in her spine. She waited until she heard the click of his door, then walked into the kitchen and stared at the backpack he had tossed carelessly onto the floor. It was blue, worn at the edges, with a patch of a rocket ship peeling off. A tear along the zipper seam had been there for weeks. She crouched down, picked it up, and unzipped it slowly. Inside, there were crumpled worksheets, a broken pencil, and a juice box that had leaked sticky liquid across the bottom. She reached in, pulling out items one by one, then stopped. There was a folded piece of paper tucked beneath a notebook. It was folded too neatly, the edges aligned perfectly, no creases or smudges. Not like something a 7-year-old would fold. She pulled it out and unfolded it. The paper trembled in her hands. There were only 5 words written on it, block letters. No signature. "He's not who you think." Her mouth went dry. She read it again. "He's not who you think." She looked back toward the hallway, toward her son's room. Was this a joke? A prank? A cruel message from another child? But something about the way it was folded, the handwriting, the eerie calm in Caleb's face. It didn't feel like a prank. Her heart beat harder. She turned the note over. Nothing on the back. No initials, no context. Just that message. Clear, cold, intentional. She paced the kitchen, clutching the paper, trying to reason with herself. Maybe a kid put it there. Maybe Caleb didn't even know. But that wasn't good enough. Something about the silence in the car, the way he walked, the absence of his usual spark. Something was wrong. And then she remembered last night. She'd gone into his room to check on him, and he had flinched when she touched his shoulder, flinched like he was afraid. She hadn't thought much of it at the time. Maybe a bad dream, maybe just startled. But now? Now her thoughts were racing in 100 directions, all of them dark. She walked quietly to Caleb's door and knocked. No answer. She opened it slowly. He was sitting on the floor, hugging a stuffed bear to his chest, staring at the wall. Not the TV, not a book, just the blank, pale wall. "Sweetheart," she said softly, "can I talk to you for a second?" He didn't move, didn't blink. "Caleb, where did this come from?" She held the note out. He looked at it, and his lips parted like he was going to speak, but then he shook his head. "Did someone give this to you?" She pressed. He nodded once. "Who, honey? Was it a teacher? A student?" Caleb's eyes began to water. He opened his mouth again, closed it, looked at the floor. "Caleb, is someone hurting you?" The silence was unbearable. He finally whispered, barely audible, "I wasn't supposed to show you." The words felt like ice on her skin. Lauren knelt down, grabbed his hands gently. "Sweetie, who gave you this, please? You can tell me?" His voice trembled. "A lady. In the library." Lauren's stomach dropped. "What lady? Do you know her?" Caleb shook his head. "She said it was important. She said I had to give it to you when no one was looking." Lauren stared at the note again. Her hands were shaking now. She stood, grabbed her phone, and dialed the school's front office. "Hi, this is Lauren Davis, Caleb's mother. I need to speak to the librarian." There was a pause, some shuffling. "I'm sorry," the secretary finally said. "Our librarian was out today, has been out all week." Lauren blinked. "Then who was watching the library?" "No one. The room's been locked. Maintenance work." The floor beneath her seemed to tilt. "There was someone in there," she said, barely hearing her own voice. "I'm sorry, ma'am." Lauren hung up. Her mind was spinning. A woman in the library. That was locked. A note. Folded too perfectly, and her son, afraid to talk. She grabbed her keys. Caleb looked up, alarmed. "Where are you going?" "We're going for a drive," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Where?" She didn't answer. She didn't know how to say. "We're going to the police." Because the person behind that note wasn't a kid. It wasn't a prank. It was a warning. And someone in Caleb's life wasn't who they seemed to be. She buckled him into the back seat, her hands trembling. Every instinct in her screamed that this wasn't just about a note. This was about something deeper, something hidden. As she pulled out of the driveway, Caleb asked softly, "Am I in trouble?" Her heart broke. "No, baby. You did the right thing." The roads blurred unders. The tires, the clouds overhead swirled in uneasy patterns. Lauren drove with one hand on the wheel and the other gripping the note so tightly the paper bent. She didn't care how crazy she sounded. She didn't care if they laughed at her. She was going to the police, because whatever this was, it wasn't a coincidence. And if she waited any longer, she might be too late. What do you think the woman in the library knew? Would you believe a message like that? What if the person you trusted most wasn't who you thought? What if the truth was hiding in your child's backpack the entire time? The police station loomed ahead like a fortress of cold certainty, its brick walls stained by years of quiet confessions and louder secrets. Lauren parked the car and turned to look at her son. His knees were drawn up to his chest. He wouldn't meet her eyes. She took a breath. "We're going to talk to someone who can help, okay?" Caleb nodded just once and followed her in without a word. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed softly, and a woman behind the reception desk looked up with mild surprise as they approached. "I need to speak to someone," Lauren said, her voice lower than she expected. "It's about my son, and a note someone gave him at school." The woman raised an eyebrow but didn't ask questions. Instead, she picked up the phone, murmured something into the receiver, then gestured toward a bench. "Detective Alvarez will be out in a minute." Lauren sat. Her palms were slick with sweat. Caleb leaned against her shoulder, small and silent. She replayed everything in her mind: the note, the locked library, the woman who shouldn't have been there, and her son's trembling voice. Was she overreacting? Was this just an overprotective mother spinning things out of control? But every part of her body said no. Something wasn't right. "Ms. Davis?" A voice called. A tall man in plain clothes approached, his badge clipped to his belt. Late 40s, with tired eyes and a calm tone. Lauren stood quickly. "Thank you for seeing me." "Come with me," he said, gesturing to a room off to the side. She took Caleb's hand and followed. The room was plain: a table, 3 chairs, a large mirror on the wall that reflected their worry back at them. Detective Alvarez offered a small smile. "Start from the beginning." She laid the note on the table. He read it once, twice. His expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted. "Where did you find this?" he asked. "In my son's backpack. Today, after school." He turned to Caleb. Do you remember who gave it to you, buddy? Caleb hesitated, then whispered, A lady in the library. Alvarez's eyes narrowed. She said not to tell anyone. But I showed my mom. Lauren rubbed her son's back. He said the school librarian's been out, that the library was locked, but somehow this woman was there. Alvarez tapped his fingers against the table. And you have no idea who she was? Lauren shook her head. Caleb's never seen her before. The detective stood, motioned for a colleague outside the door, and whispered something. A minute later, he returned with a folder and slid it across the table toward Caleb. There are some pictures here, just photos of people who visited the school recently. Tell me if you recognize anyone. Caleb's small hand reached for the folder. He flipped through the pages slowly, then he stopped. That's her. Lauren leaned in. It was a grainy security photo. A woman standing just outside the school fence. Her face partially obscured by sunglasses and a scarf. Dark hair. Tall. Thin. Unfamiliar? Do you know who that is? Lauren asked the detective. He hesitated. We're not certain yet, but she's appeared on camera 3 times in the last 2 weeks. Near schools, never caught going inside, always outside the perimeters. Watching. Lauren's throat tightened. So why hasn't anyone stopped her? No laws are being broken, Alvarez said quietly. Not yet. She gripped the edge of the table. But now there's this. She pointed to the note. He nodded. And that changes everything. Caleb sat quietly, his eyes on the floor. Then he said something that made the entire room go still. She knew my name. Alvarez turned to him. What do you mean? She called me by my name. She said, Caleb, your mom needs to see this. The detective froze. Lauren felt her heartbeat in her ears. Did she say anything else? Alvarez asked. Caleb nodded. She said, You're in danger. But she doesn't know it yet. Lauren clutched her chest. Alvarez stood abruptly. He walked to the door and signaled for another officer. I want security footage from that entire week pulled again, he ordered. And alert the district. We may have a breach. He returned to the table. His voice was lower now, tense. Controlled. Ms. Davis, I don't want to alarm you, but I believe this woman is targeting you, or your son, or both. Lauren felt the room tilt slightly. Why? I don't understand. We're just normal. Sometimes that's exactly why people become targets, he said. And if someone's warning you, who clearly knows your son's name, your schedule, and where he'll be, we take that seriously. She looked at her son. The fear in his eyes wasn't imagined. It had been growing for days. I want to take him home, she said. Please, the detective nodded. We'll send a patrol to follow you, just for precaution. Lauren scooped up the note, folded it, slid it into her purse like a weapon. Outside the air was thicker, like the world had changed shape while they were inside. She didn't go straight home. Instead, she drove around the neighborhood, twice, looking for any car that didn't belong, any face that didn't look familiar. Caleb sat in silence, his head resting against the window. When they finally pulled into the driveway, she kept the engine running for another minute, just staring at the front door of her own home. It no longer felt safe. That night, she checked every window, every door. She locked the back gate. She kept Caleb in her room. The hallway light stayed on, and still, sleep didn't come. At 2:13 a.m., she heard a sound, soft, a rustle. She froze. It was coming from the front porch. She crept down the hallway, barefoot, every step echoing. She peeked through the peephole, empty. Then she opened the door. A package sat on the welcome mat, wrapped in brown paper. No address, no markings. Just a single piece of tape holding it closed. Her blood ran cold. She looked up and down the street. Nothing. She picked it up slowly, backed into the house, and locked the door. Caleb stirred in the other room. She could hear him coughing. She sat down at the kitchen table, pulled the scissors from the drawer, cut the tape. Inside was a small cloth-bound journal, old, frayed at the edges, and on the first page, written in the same hand as the note, "He's not your son." Lauren couldn't breathe. Her hands trembled as she flipped to the next page. A photograph, black and white, a woman holding a baby. The woman looked like her, but younger, barely recognizable. Her hair was longer, her eyes vacant. She flipped. Again, birth records, a hospital name she didn't know, a date that didn't match. Her fingers clutched the edge of the table to stop from falling over. This wasn't possible. Caleb was hers. She had given birth. She remembered the pain, the hours, the moment he was placed on her chest, and yet the document said otherwise, and whoever had left this journal knew far too much. She looked toward the hallway. Caleb's silhouette stood in the doorway. He looked so small, so fragile. "Mom," he whispered, "are you okay?" She nodded, swallowing, the lump in her throat. "Yeah, baby, just couldn't sleep." He walked to her, climbed into her lap, and rested his head against her chest. She held him tight, so tight. But in her mind, one question screamed louder than all the rest. If Caleb wasn't her son, then whose was he, and what happened to the child that was supposed to be hers? The morning light spilled in, slow and gold across the floor, but it didn't bring peace. Not after what Lauren had read. The journal sat on the table like a ticking bomb. She hadn't slept. Every page she turned blurred the line between truth and nightmare. Names, dates, faded photos, shards of a life she didn't recognize. Hospital records, adoption forms, a woman's name, Marissa Clark, and a child listed as no name assigned. There was no mention of Lauren, no record of her pregnancy, no signature matching hers, and yet Caleb was in her arms. She knew him, she'd raised him, loved him, watched his first steps, heard his first word. Still, something dark whispered, "What if everything you remember is a lie?" She waited until Caleb was dressed and watching cartoons before she slipped back into the kitchen and called Detective Alvarez. When he answered, she didn't wait. "I got a package last night on my porch, no sender. Inside was a journal. It says, 'Caleb isn't my son.'" There was a long pause on the other end. "Lauren, listen carefully. Do not touch anything else in that package. We're sending someone now." She looked at the journal, her fingertips already stained by its pages. "It's too late for that." "Is Caleb safe?" "Yes," she said. "He's okay, but I'm not." Alvarez sighed. "I'm going to escalate this. This isn't just a stalker anymore. Someone has gone to great lengths to reach you, and now they're manipulating what you believe about your son." She didn't reply, because deep down, the fear had already taken root. What if they weren't manipulating her? What if they were revealing something? Within 30 minutes, 2 officers arrived, took the package, photographed everything, and promised to run DNA analysis on anything viable. Lauren watched them drive off, clutching Caleb's hand like it was the only thing anchoring her to reality. By noon, she was sitting at the kitchen table again, laptop open, searching everything she could on the name Marissa Clark. Most results were dead ends. Obituaries, common listings, even a criminal record from Florida that didn't match the age or location. Then, one article caught her eye. "Local woman's baby abducted from hospital. Case still open after 9 years." Her blood ran cold. She clicked. The article was dated 10 years ago. A mother, Marissa Clark, age 23 at the time, claimed her newborn had been taken from a hospital in another state. She insisted something had been done to her records. Staff denied the baby was ever registered. No arrests were made. No baby was found. Lauren scrolled down. Then she saw the photo. A younger Marissa. Long dark hair, wide-set eyes. The same kind of fragile beauty Lauren had seen in the photo from the journal. And her baby. Only a vague black and white image. But there was something in the curve of the nose, the roundness of the cheeks. It looked like Caleb. Lauren covered her mouth, her breathing jagged. She closed the laptop. Was it possible? Could her baby have been switched? Had she, unknowingly, raised someone else's child? She picked up her phone. Hands trembling, she called the hospital where she'd given birth. "I'm trying to get access to my maternity records," she explained, "from 9 years ago. I need everything you have. Admission forms, delivery notes, ID numbers. Thiko. A woman on the line asked for her name. Her son's birth date. There was a pause. I'm sorry, the voice finally said, but we don't have any record of a Lauren Davis delivering a baby here on that date. Lauren's world tilted. That's not possible, she said. Remember it. I was there. I stayed 2 nights. I understand, but there's no record under your name or that birth date. No record at all? None that I can access. She hung up. Her body felt like glass. She walked down the hall and peeked into Caleb's room. He was sitting on the floor, playing with plastic dinosaurs, humming to himself. Normal? Ordinary. But Lauren could barely breathe. That night, she lay beside him again, unable to close her eyes. At 3:07 a.m., her phone lit up. Unknown number. No caller ID. She hesitated, then answered. The voice on the other end was female, soft, frayed. Did you read it? The woman asked. Lauren sat up. Who is this? You read the journal, the woman said again. I saw the light through your window. I know you read it. Who are you? Lauren demanded. Are you Marissa? Silence. Then, he's mine, Lauren's heart pounded. No, he's my son. You think that, the voice whispered. But they lied to you. You weren't supposed to keep him. You were just a place to hide him. Lauren felt sick. I don't believe you. The woman spoke slower now. I gave birth to him in a place that doesn't admit mistakes. They covered it up. They took him. I spent years trying to find where they placed him. Then I found you. Tears welled up in Lauren's eyes. You expect me to believe this? She whispered. I expect you to remember, the voice said. Then the call ended. The next morning, she drove straight to Detective Alvarez's office. She didn't knock. She walked in. She called me, Lauren said. She knows where I live. She knows everything. Alvarez stood. What did she say? She thinks Caleb is her son. She said, I wasn't meant to keep him, that I was just a hiding place. The detective's jaw tensed. He motioned for her to sit, then pulled a file from his desk. I wasn't going to show you this yet, he said. But after last night, I think you deserve to see it. He slid it across the table. Lauren opened. The folder. Inside was a hospital personnel file, a woman's ID badge, Marissa Clark, registered nurse, pediatric unit, employed at the hospital where Lauren gave birth, or thought she had. She worked there? Lauren whispered. 10 years ago. Resigned a few months before you gave birth, and she lost a baby? Her records indicate she filed multiple complaints about inconsistencies in infant records. Internal audits found nothing. Eventually, she was let go. Then, she went quiet for almost a decade. Until now, Alvarez nodded. We believe she's fixated on your son, possibly delusional, possibly something more. Lauren clenched her fists. I need a DNA test. We've already submitted samples. From Caleb's toothbrush. We're expediting the results. Her voice was a whisper. And if she's telling the truth? Alvarez didn't answer, because they both knew what that would mean. Later that afternoon, the doorbell rang. She looked through the peephole. No one. She opened the door slowly. A letter sat on the mat. Inside a plain white envelope, sealed with red wax. Lauren opened it. One line. He remembers me. Ask him about the lullaby. She backed away from the door, her knees weak. She turned and ran down the hall. Caleb was coloring at the table, his tongue poking out in concentration. Sweetheart, she asked gently. Can I ask you something? He nodded. Has anyone ever sung you a lullaby? One that wasn't me? He stopped coloring, blinking, then said softly, The lady in the library did. Lauren swallowed hard. What song? He hummed. A slow, eerie melody. Half notes, unfinished phrases. It sent a chill down her spine, because she had never heard that tune in her life. But Caleb knew it perfectly, and he hummed it like he'd known it since he was a baby. The melody haunted her. Lauren sat frozen on the edge of her bed, hearing it loop in her mind long after Caleb had gone to sleep. It wasn't just the tune, it was the way he hummed it. So natural, like it lived inside him, like it had always been there, buried in a place she'd never reached. She recorded him humming and sent the audio file to Detective Alvarez. 10 minutes later, he called back. His voice was low, urgent. "I ran the file through audio recognition software," he said. "It's not a commercial lullaby, but I found a match." Lauren clutched the phone tighter. "It's in a private video file Marissa posted online 9 years ago, buried in a forum thread about missing children. She sang it during an interview, said it was something she used to hum to her newborn in the hospital before he vanished." Lauren's breath caught. "You're saying Caleb somehow remembers that? He would have been a few days old, Lauren. It's unlikely, but not impossible. Some memories can be stored through sound, even in infancy." Lauren closed her eyes. She had no memory of singing it to him, because she never had. So how did he know? That night she checked the locks on every window, every door, twice. Sleep didn't come. At 3:14 a.m., a light blinked on the baby monitor. She hadn't used it in years. But it was still plugged in, buried in a drawer, accidentally activated by a power surge earlier that day. Now it buzzed faintly. A whisper of sound. Lauren stared at it. Then she heard it. Humming. That same melody. Not from Caleb. From someone in the room. She ran. She burst into Caleb's bedroom. Lights on. Heart racing. He was in bed, asleep, undisturbed, alone. She searched. Every inch. Under the bed, closet, bathroom. Nothing but the humming. It was still there. Except now, it was coming from the monitor again. She picked it up and yanked the batteries out. Silence. Lauren clutched the monitor to her chest, trembling. The song. Next morning, Alvarez arrived with results. He held a sealed folder. His eyes didn't meet hers. She didn't wait. She grabbed it and opened it. 2 DNA comparisons, Caleb and Lauren, not a match. Caleb and Marissa Clark. Probable match, 99.98% certainty. The room spun. Lauren dropped the folder. "I don't understand," she whispered. Alvarez's tone was gentle. "We believe you were given a different baby at the hospital, possibly intentionally. There may have been a black market adoption ring operating inside. It's something we've been investigating for years." Lauren shook her head. "But why?" "Me? Why would they choose me?" "We don't know. You had no family, no one to question paperwork. You were vulnerable." A tear slipped down her cheek. "And now what?" she asked. He exhaled. "Marissa has a legal case, especially now that she's proven maternity. But your bond with Caleb, that matters too. This won't be decided overnight." Lauren looked down the hall toward her son's room. Her heart felt like it was tearing in two. "He's my son," she whispered, "even if he wasn't born to me." Alvarez nodded. "No one is saying he isn't. But Marissa, she wants contact." Lauren turned to him slowly. "She left a note. On my doorstep. Said he remembers her. Told me to ask about the lullaby." "She's been watching you," he said. "That note is a threat. She's not just asking for visitation. She's trying to force your hand." Lauren's voice was cold. "Then she doesn't deserve anything." The detective hesitated. "I agree, but she might not wait for legal channels. We've requested a surveillance detail. Until this is sorted out." Lauren nodded slowly. The next 2 days passed. In surreal quiet. No new notes, no calls. Just a sick, dragging calm until Friday afternoon. Caleb didn't come out of school. Lauren waited in the pickup lane, eyes scanning the children spilling out the front doors. No, Caleb. She got out of the car, ran to the office. He never showed. "Up for last period," the secretary said. His teacher assumed he was checked out early. Lauren's knees buckled. She called Alvarez, screaming into the phone. Within minutes, every squad car in the area was on alert. They pulled surveillance footage. At 1:37 p.m., a woman entered through the rear gate wearing a staff badge. Not a teacher, not a parent. A long coat, sunglasses. Hair pinned up, she held Caleb's hand. They walked out together. No struggle, no panic, as if he knew her. Lauren stared at the screen. Her world collapsed. Marissa had taken him. By nightfall, Amber Alerts had gone statewide. Photos of Caleb and Marissa splashed across news screens. Police combed the area. Lauren sat in her living room, rocking back and forth, the baby monitor clutched in her hands like a relic of something broken. The humming came again, but this time not from the monitor, from the hallway. She stood slowly, walked toward the sound, opened the door, and froze. Caleb stood there, alone, barefoot, eyes wide and scared. Behind him the street was empty. Lauren fell to her knees, sobbing as she pulled him into her arms. She kissed his hair, his cheeks, his hands. "Where were you?" she whispered. "What happened?" He didn't speak right away, just held her tightly. Finally he said, "She said she knew me. She said she used to sing to me in the dark, that I cried a lot, that you were only keeping me safe until she could come back." Lauren looked at him, brushing the hair from his eyes. "Did you believe her?" He shook his head. "She was nice, but not like you. You're mine." Lauren hugged him tighter. Then she saw it, a folded note in his back pocket. She pulled it out, hands shaking. "One line. I won't take him yet. But I will. He's mine. You know it now, too." There was no signature, just that same red wax seal. Lauren turned to the front yard. Police cars screeched, and seconds later, Alvarez jumped out, but the street was empty. No car, no woman, no trace. Lauren gave him the note. She didn't cry. Not this time. She just said quietly, "She's not going to stop." Alvarez's eyes were hard. "Then we won't stop either." That night, Lauren didn't sleep. Neither did Caleb. They sat on the couch together, wrapped in a blanket, the baby monitor beside them. Every sound made her flinch, and far off, in the static hum of the device, the lullaby played again, faint, lingering, like a shadow that refused to let go. Lauren stopped going outside alone. Every trip to the store, every school pickup, every errand was now done with a silent police escort lingering nearby. She installed new locks, security cameras, a doorbell with motion alerts, but none of it made her feel safer, because she knew something no lock could stop. Marissa wasn't a stranger lurking in the shadows. She was a mother, desperate, calculated, patient, and Lauren had learned that desperate mothers don't give up. They wait. They plan. They come back. The days blurred. Caleb returned to school under new procedures, escorted from class to car by security, a password system in place, ID badges scanned and verified. Lauren never let him out of her sight for longer than absolutely necessary, but every night she heard the lullaby. It wasn't in the monitor anymore. That had been destroyed. She'd crushed it with a hammer the day after Caleb returned, but the tune remained, in her head, in her dreams, and sometimes, faintly, from behind the walls. Caleb drew again, more pictures of a house, not theirs, always the same one, a white house, with red shutters, ivy crawling up one side, a wraparound porch, a swing that creaked in the wind. Lauren asked him where he'd seen it. He just said, "I remember it, but from where?" she pressed. He shook his head. "Before, when I was little, I think she lived there." Lauren scanned every image database she could. Street views, real estate listings, nothing. She sent them to Alvarez. He ran it through every known property connected to Marissa Clark. Nothing. And then, one day, Caleb handed her a photo. It wasn't a drawing. It was an actual printed photo, old faded, torn on the edge, the same white house, same shutters, same swing. Lauren froze. "Where did you get this?" she asked. He looked up at her, wide-eyed. "It was in my backpack," she checked. Nothing else inside. No note, no writing, just the photo. She turned it over. 2 words scratched. In black ink, "Come home." She called Alvarez. His voice was sharper than usual. "We've seen that house," he said. "It burned down 7 years ago. Rural property. Belonged to a foster family in Vermont, off the grid. No digital footprint, but the address is linked to a P.O. box once used by Marissa's mother." Lauren stared at the photo. "She wants us to go there." Alvarez was quiet. "She's baiting you." "I know. You're not thinking of actually—" "Yes," Lauren interrupted. "I have to." That night she drove, not alone. Alvarez followed. Unmarked car. Backup on standby. They crossed state lines, into back roads swallowed by trees, branches clawing at the windshield. Lauren gripped the steering wheel, her heart pounding in rhythm with every bump in the road. Finally, they found it, or what was left of it. Charred beams. A collapsed porch. The white paint blackened with soot. Ivy still curled up the surviving posts, now dead and brittle. The swing was gone. Lauren stepped out of the car. The wind was sharp, cold, and then she saw it, fresh. Footprints, small ones, like a child's, Caleb's size, leading from the gravel into the ruins. She didn't call out. She just followed. Alvarez's voice crackled in her earpiece. "Lauren, don't go in. Wait for my team." But she didn't stop. The footsteps disappeared at the base of what used to be the stairs, and in their place, a box, wrapped in a cloth. She knelt, hands trembling, and opened it. Inside, photos of Caleb. Every year since birth. First tooth, first steps, birthday cakes, swimming lessons, photos Lauren had never taken. She gasped. There were receipts, too, from nearby towns, hotels, groceries, small towns across 3 states. Marissa had been watching for years, following them, staying close. Then, tucked at the bottom, a VHS tape, labeled with a single word, "Before." Lauren brought it back to the car. They returned home. Police took custody of the box, ran fingerprints, tested DNA. Alvarez called her at midnight. "Lauren," he said quietly, "the tape, you need to see it." She drove to the station. Inside the viewing room, they played it static. Then an image, a hospital room, dimly lit. Marissa sat on a bed, cradling a baby. The camera was shaky, like it was hidden. Maybe a nurse. Maybe someone documenting things they shouldn't have been. She sang softly. The lullaby. Lauren felt like her heart had been torn open. Then another woman appeared, older, stern. She took the baby from Marissa. "No more visits," she said. "You've made your decision," Marissa sobbed. "Please, one more day. I changed my mind." But the woman turned and walked out. The camera followed, down a hallway, past nurses, past cribs, until it stopped on one. A nurse held a clipboard. "Baby transferred," she said. "Adopted already." The baby was carried out of frame, and that was it. The screen went black. Lauren sat in silence. Alvarez said nothing. She whispered, "So." She didn't give him up willingly. He nodded slowly. She tried to take him back, but the system moved faster. Lauren felt tears on her cheeks. She lost him. And then she waited, until she could find him again. Alvarez leaned forward. But she still broke the law, and she's still dangerous. She manipulated a school, took a child across state lines. That's kidnapping, no matter the intent. Lauren nodded. "I know." He studied her. "What do you want to do, Lauren?" She didn't answer right away, just stared at the screen, then said softly, "I want her to stop. I want Caleb safe. But I also want him to know the truth when he's ready." Alvarez exhaled. "That might be years away. I'll wait." She stood, but as she reached the door, he called after her. "We found something else." She turned. He handed her an envelope. Inside, a letter. From Marissa. Handwritten, shaky. "Lauren, I was going to take him. I was. But he looked at me and said your name, not mine. And I knew I'd lost him twice. I won't take him again, but I'll always be close. I hope one day he'll want to find me. Until then, thank you for loving him the way I never got to." There was no signature, just the same red wax seal. Lauren folded the letter. She walked out into the night. The air was colder now, sharper, but something in her heart had settled. She didn't know if the fear would ever leave, but the silence that followed was different this time. Not empty, just still. At home, she tucked Caleb in. He asked, "Is she gone?" Lauren brushed the hair from his forehead. "For now," she said. "But she left something for you." She handed him the photo, the house with the swing. He stared at it for a long time, then looked up. "I think I remember the swing," he whispered. Lauren kissed his cheek. and said softly, "That's okay." He drifted to sleep, and this time no humming, only the sound of breathing, of peace, however fragile.